DPR surveillance equipment. Just finished up. So, very nice areas, but they are under siege as well. Got about 20,000 acres probably, I think, up from about 8,000 acres just a day or two ago. So that fire is growing pretty rapidly. So keep those guys in your hearts and minds. People that are affected by the fires and the shootings, and also in California. I think in Thousand Oaks there was a borderline bar and grill or something that where some former Marine person decided to shoot up the bar and grill, injuring at least a dozen people, killing almost a dozen more people. So very, very tragic things going on. I don't know what's happening. Just a lot of events that we need to take heed, pay attention to, and above all, live every day with the idea that we just need to relish and cherish and not take things for granted, definitely. So call your loved ones, call your families and friends, say hi, check up on them every once in a while, at least as much as possible, considering all the things that are going on. Nothing like having a support system, particularly when you need it. So when they need it, everyone needs each other. So my name is Monty Henry, owner of DPL Surveillance Equipment. We're a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products. We have 24/7, 365 tech, sales, and customer support. We have the largest inventory of items that not only can you buy, but you can rent and lay away as well. We have the largest growing media center, a media library. It has educational materials that are all free. Some of the categories that you're going to find interesting information in, they include cybersecurity, they include health and fitness, economics and finance, surveillance and counter-surveillance, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, anti-terrorism, products and technologies, and a miscellaneous category that's growing and growing all the time. So between the video libraries and the articles and the blogs and the podcasts, you guys should find an abundance of information to keep you occupied for weeks or months or something, just reading and listening and watching videos and such. Also, the shopping cart accepts Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bcash. We're big proponents of cryptocurrencies. We think in the very near future, the complete total economic system is going to have to make a transition over to cryptocurrencies, whether it's Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. We just see the fiat dollar system collapsing and again becoming supplanted by something that works a lot more efficiently, a lot more transparently, a lot more accountable, just you name it, just the exponential differences in the two systems. So anyway, that's integrated into our shopping cart. We like to be on the forefront, if you haven't figured out by now. DPL Surveillance Equipment likes to be on the forefront. Cryptocurrencies is a very growing, immature, emerging market, but at the same time, we want to be there. We want to get ourselves established, and we want to make sure you guys understand when you figure it out and understand what it's all about. We'll have been there already. We'll have provided the infrastructure, at least on our website, and a lot of the educational materials and such also to go along with it. So you can shop, you can learn, you can read, understand what this new industry, this new paradigm is all about. In addition to that, we want to poke a finger in the eye of the dying dinosaur fiat-based system, finance system that consists of J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Citibank, HSBC, UBS, BlackRock was just written up the other day. They have some involvement with, what was it? I think they had some sort of affiliation with Larry Blankfein. Had something to do with this one MDB scandal in Malaysia. I think it was BlackRock. You could look it up. It's on my website as well. But definitely Goldman Sachs. I'm sorry, I think blank fine works for Goldman Sachs, I think. Anyway, Goldman Sachs definitely have some involvement with 1MDB, the Malaysian scandal, whereby the sovereign fund was looted, and between Joe Low and some Saudi Arabian players, and they drew in a lot of Hollywood types, celebrities, financiers from Wall Street. Everybody was suckered into this scandal coming out of Malaysia, orchestrated by Joe Low. It seems like, and the Prime Minister, the past Prime Minister, I think is succeeded already by someone else who was aiming to clean up that mess. So you can find a lot of that information, but that all represents what I'm saying. My whole point is the current fiat system is plagued with scandal and crimes on every conceivable level, from the money laundering to the mortgage financial crisis of 2008, from LIBOR rate rigging scandals to discriminatory loan pricing to hiring of the children of Asian power players so that favors can be cultivated from the people in China, and that was done by J.P. Morgan Chase. So every conceivable level, you will find those guys are getting away with murder. The numbers for the money laundering are astronomical. 1,000 times what you would ever hear are associated with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And this is after 100 years or so of regulatory scrutiny by the regulators in Washington and such. So if those guys can't figure out how to police the traditional finance industry by now, then obviously it ain't going to happen, right? If after all these years, 100 years or something, we still have major criminal activity occurring, then obviously the regulators don't know what they're doing, or they're paid off, or they're just retarded or something. Either way, it doesn't bode very well. So that's why we have the cryptocurrency industry emerging and going to supplant the fiat industry. The Federal Reserve and the central bankers, those guys, they see the handwriting on the wall. That's why they try to chime in every once in a while and talk badly about what's going on in the cryptocurrency space, as if there's a comparison. So anyway, the shopping cart and the website is newly redesigned. Go there, check it out, and take a look at the lifetime guaranteed warranty, state-of-the-art, law enforcement grade products that are supported by a policy that dictates that we are available 24/7, 365 with the tech, sales, and customer support. Let's take a look at this particular article. It's kind of interesting. It's going to piggyback on an article that we did yesterday. We were talking about organics and how the demand for organics is outstripping supply. And the reason why this is important is because when you go to your local grocery store and supermarkets and you want organic milk and you want organic eggs and such, a lot of times what happens is you find that there's a shortage. You have to get there early on and get a lot of these things. That's because the farmers can't keep up with the demand from the supermarkets. And the supermarkets and the major chains and corporations that are actually responsible for food distribution and such, they have to actually go out and purchase more farmland. They actually have to fund and finance the operations of the farmers. They actually have to go out with the headhunters and find more people who are experts in these fields to keep up with the demand. And this article focuses on another aspect of the organics industry. This has to do with the pesticides and insecticides. If you want to really have organics, you got to start from the very beginning. The microorganisms and the seeds and the soil. So this is what we're going to look at in this article. Let's figure out what's going on here, okay, with this article. So the name of the article: Could organic pesticides be the next gold rush for entrepreneurs? Again, Could organic pesticides be the next gold rush for entrepreneurs? Hunt for beneficial microbes comes amid regulatory scrutiny of man-made chemical insecticides. On his way to a conference in Orlando, Florida, Brian Van Berg pulled his rental sedan over every 10 minutes to hike along beaches and marshes and occasionally stoop down to pack dirt into small plastic vials. His target, microscopic soil-dwelling organisms that agricultural companies consider a new frontier in protecting crops. The push into microorganisms reflects an effort by agricultural companies to diversify beyond synthetic chemical pesticides, amid growing regulatory and consumer scrutiny. Pesticides and other products incorporating microbes typically can be rolled out faster than man-made chemical insecticides and weed killers, which have drawn closer scrutiny from U.S. regulators in recent years following environmental concerns raised by consumers, advocacy groups, and organic farmers. Seeded pesticide makers like BASF, SE, DuPont Company, Bayer AG, and Monsanto Company are investing heavily to develop new products incorporating organisms like bacteria and tiny fungi, which executives say can help corn, soybean, and other plants fend off pests and grow faster. Mr. Vanberg, a research and development director in Bayer's Crop Science Division, is part of an expanding hunt that has led researchers to far-flung corners of the United States, combing dry creek beds and compost piles for tiny microorganisms. The companies aim to coat the outsides of the seeds with such beneficial microbes and in other cases spray them on growing plants. There are a lot of things microbe-based products can do today we look to synthetic chemistry to do, said Paul Schickler, president of DuPont's Seed Unit Pioneer. So basically, Paul Schickler is admitting that synthetics can do a whole lot, but it looks like the microbe-based solutions are a lot more flexible and a lot more advanced in terms of what they can do. So why would you settle for the negative consequences and stigma associated with toxic insecticides and pesticides when you can use microbes? Just a matter of finding the right ones for the right purpose, it looks like. Let's read on. Microorganisms have been narrowly used for decades in agriculture, mainly in coating soybeans and other legumes to better absorb nutrients and fight fungus. Now companies say advances in genetic analysis technology and cultivation practices enable them to find and develop new microorganisms that can perform much broader functions, such as shielding crops from more diseases and pests or mitigating damage from drought. The DNA diagnostics today give you a level of understanding you didn't have 5 to 10 years ago, said Robert Fraley, Monsanto's chief technology officer. So again, it looks like, the major companies, the Monsantos and the Bayers and everyone else, is finally taking a look at the idea that these microbes, once we analyze the DNA enough, we can determine the usefulness of the DNA of the microorganisms, in terms of how they can, again, either allow soybeans to absorb nutrients better, or and make them more resistant to drought and pests. So this is a big deal, you guys. So let's move on. Monsanto and its rivals for nearly 20 years have sowed genetically modified seeds for crops like corn and cotton. They splice in traits from other organisms that enable the seeds to produce bug-killing proteins or to withstand the chemical sprays that the companies also sell. So this is like hypocritical when you put poisons on seeds and plants, and then you have to genetically modify those seeds, genetically modify those plants and seeds to be more resistant to the chemicals that you're putting on them. To me, that sounds like a lose-lose situation. In other words, the more potent the poisons you spray on the plants, the more resilient you have to make the plants and the seeds, which means that now the biology of the plants is not so much to make us healthy and to give us a nutritious diet, but now everything is engineered towards countering poisonous effects that were intentionally introduced into the seeds and the plants and the soil. So moving away from that whole paradigm, I think is going to allow us to get back to making nutritious food versus something that's not going to kill you as quickly. Incorporating microscopic organisms such as bacteria and fungi represents a different approach, encouraging helpful bacteria and fungi to live on the plant's surfaces, helping plants absorb nutrients and providing defenses against bugs and disease. Microbe-based products face skepticism from some environmentalists, but because they don't rely on genetic engineering or man-made chemicals, the products can be used in producing organic and natural foods. USDA rules bar organic products from containing genetically modified organisms or GMOs, but permit the use of naturally occurring bacteria on organic crops, though the agency reviews such treatments and certifying farms as organic to make sure that products don't include synthetic substances. Let's see here. Consumers' appetite for healthier, more environmentally friendly options has made organics a star in the food industry, driving deals like General Mills Incorporated planned $820 million purchase of organic and natural foods purveyor Annie's Incorporated. A small but growing number of food makers also have started culling GMOs from some products. Biological pesticides is the proper name for this category, you guys, of micro-based products. It's biological pesticides, including bacteria-based products, today have annual sales of about $2 billion or 4% of the $54 billion in global sales of chemical sprays, according to industry estimates. So it looks like this is a very burgeoning industry, and I initially published this article years ago, and more than likely this $2 billion figure could be 6, 8, or 10 billion by now, and instead of having 4% of the $54 billion global sales of chemical sprays, I think the biological pesticides are going to be, who knows, 8, 16, probably 12% of the $54 billion pesticide chemical industry by now. Moving right along. But consumers and advocacy groups also are raising alarms over the environmental impact of man-made crop chemicals that dominate the market, such as glyphosate. Glyphosate, widely sold by Monsanto as Roundup, that could help boost sales of biopesticides to $5 billion, or about 10% of the projected market by the end of the decade, according to Piper Jaffray analyst Michael Cox. The products also may appeal to agricultural producers who export crops to foreign countries that restrict synthetic pesticide use, said Sarah Olson, agricultural analyst for advisory firm Lux Research Incorporated. Finding beneficial microorganisms is like looking for a needle in a field of haystacks. The DNA diagnostics today give you a level of understanding you didn't have 5 to 10 years ago. Robert Fraley, Monsanto's chief technology officer. About 50 billion microbes live in a typical tablespoon of soil. Researchers have discovered effective microbes in samples from a Buddhist temple garden in a Hawaiian beach, and from less exotic locales like dry creek beds and compost piles. At Bayer, one promising microbe that kills caterpillars came from a sample taken in an employee's backyard in North Carolina. It's serendipity, said Mr. Van Berg. He said that he's not sure whether any of the soil samples he collected on his Florida drive 4 years ago have yielded a breakthrough microorganism. Pesticide makers pushed into the business through a string of deals. Germany's BASF, or BASF, the world's largest chemical company by sales, in 2012 paid $1 billion to buy Becker Underwood, an Iowa firm specialized in biologically based pesticides. Bayer paid $500 million that year for a similar business called AgroQuest Incorporated. So it looks like if you're an entrepreneur and you want to make a ton of money, not a small amount, but a ton of money, make sure that you understand that this industry, the idea of using microorganisms to better crop yield production and resistance to drought, pests, make them more efficient water consumers or whatever, is gonna probably result in you being on the shopping list of Bayer, Monsanto, and all of these other guys, BASF from Germany. These guys are paying a lot of money, you guys, for startups that are getting a handle on understanding how to use microorganisms and helpful bacteria. Moving right along. DuPont is building its micro platform with technology acquired in its $6.5 billion deal for ingredient maker Danisco AS in 2011. DuPont said in August it is building 2 new U.S. research facilities that will help develop such products. Monsanto, the largest seed maker by sales, said in August it plans to nearly triple microbe research efforts in 2015. It struck a partnership last year with Novozymes AS, agreeing to pay the Danish biotech firm $300 million so Monsanto can use Novozymes technology and sell farm-friendly microorganisms they developed together. Microbe-based products face challenges too. Analysts said it is unclear the companies will be as successful in making scientific advancements with microbes as they have been with GMO seeds and chemical sprays. It could be a meaningful market, but it's still years down the road, says Jeffrey Stafford, an analyst with Morningstar Incorporated. And some environmental groups warn that mass deployment of microorganisms across farm fields could yield its own problems, such as by spurring pests to more quickly develop resistance to bacterial attacks, leading to even tougher weeds and bugs. Margaret Reeves, a senior scientist with the Pesticide Action Network, said that problem could end up requiring even more pesticide use. The approach is still not one of long-term sustainability, she said. I just want to chime in and say, look, no promising revolutionary technology is going to come without some caveats, some controversy, some growing pains, if you will. Cars transitioning from horses to cars, using electricity the way we do, wireless technology, microwave ovens were going to be the bane of civilization at one time. You name it. There is no such thing as a major innovation in any particular field that doesn't come without some growing pains, some controversy, some idea that we need regulatory scrutiny, environmental oversight, et cetera, et cetera. It's just inevitable. But it doesn't mean we can't figure out how to make the transition from fossil fuels to solar or feed more people with less. With a concept that we finally figured out that we can have protein and other forms other than just cows, which basically use so much energy and food consumption and water, but we can get a lot of protein from, who knows where you want to get it from, soybeans, insects, you name it. In the future, this is seaweed or something, things from the ocean are going to be producing a lot of protein. So, yeah, every time we make a major breakthrough, there's going to be controversy, there's going to be debate going back and forth, there's going to be environmental concerns, et cetera, et cetera. But that's how you make progress in a civilization. You tackle the hard problems, and one by one, you alleviate these concerns, and then we get to the point where we become more capable of living and breathing clean air, drinking clean water, and living longer and healthier. That's where we're going. That's what progress does for you. Anyway, as we like to say at the conclusion of every single podcast, you guys keep your eyes and ears open and stay safe out there, and we will talk to you later. Bye.